With you guys, I was so happy with the pandemic happening. There was the real threat that nothing would be there to cover, which is in sports and in content that is generated on a regular basis is your bread and butter. But you had a series of events that unfolded, which meant that you guys were still able to produce content. But I guess the question I have is, what are the lessons that you've derived from a period where you had to be creative, not only with the stuff you were putting out, but also in the way that you were making your endeavors and how you were trying to be entrepreneurial? And obviously the move to the Athletic is one thing, but you sound like you're someone who, even now that you would have had the notion of security, there's still a part of you that wants to, but what else is there? Is there another avenue that we can go down? And is there another risk I can take, because that risk might have potential? Do you know what I mean? What lessons do you think you've learned?
That's a very big question. I think you learn lessons in everything you do. I think if I was to start Muddy Knees Media now with what I've learned all over again, there'd be a number of things that would be different. But equally, some of the biggest mistakes were such big learning experiences and kind of fun along the way as well. We made a musical theatre show. Now, before you write this off completely, it's worth noting that I think more tickets are sold in London's West End than there are for football matches every week. A load of people go and watch musical theatre. It's a huge industry. So we were scouring around. I say it was my idea. No one else can be dragged into this. Huge industry. No real major podcast about it, so maybe this is the thing that we move into. So off we went. I got a brilliant broadcaster called Jamie Crick, who is Jazz FM and Classic FM, musical aficionado, excellent presenter. There's a lovely woman called Kerry, who'd been in basically every musical theatre show there is. We had guests from, a new Aladdin comes into the West End. We had that Aladdin in our studio talking about his role. What we failed, I use the word we again as if it's anyone else's fault but my own. What I failed to realise was that people really only like one thing about musicals, and that's the music.
Right.
That, allied to getting pissed on white wine and singing on the tube home. That's what they like. That's what they're not there for the human resources aspect. They don't care who the new Aladdin is. They don't care about who wrote it and why or anything like that.
Really? Because that seems to be where the content seems to be skewing at the moment. A lot of people want, because you're right, historically at least, it seemed to be that the insular nature of someone's experience wasn't entertaining to people. It's why albums written by people who then became, they write songs about being on the road weren't very entertaining because a person can't relate. But it seems like now more than ever, people do have kind of this weird fixation and fascination for how things are coming together or what it goes into making it. So you found that wasn't the case.
Tragically, we weren't able to find them. What we did find was that people who worked in the theatre absolutely loved it because it was directly pertinent to their interests. They wanted to know who was moving where. They wanted these people that they interacted with. They wanted to hear the stories behind the stories. So we basically had an audience of about 1,000 people who really, really loved it. But unfortunately, 1,000 people can't be monetized, especially when you're paying a songstress from the West End and a professional broadcaster. It was never going to work. So it was folded up after about 10 episodes. And that was kind of harsh because it was a really good show for what it was. It just wasn't going to make money. And the lessons that you take from that, I think that probably cost me about 10 grand. But the lessons that I learned were worth way more than 10 grand in terms of how you put a project together. You can think you've come up with something really clever, but if something doesn't exist, there might be a reason why it doesn't exist. This is not always the case, and you should never think, I'm wrong and the rest of the world is right. Frequently there are moments where it's the other way around, but yeah, that was a good lesson to learn. And also to everyone affected by it, I'm sorry.
I'm sure, again, because I think you're right. It's even if the endeavor ultimately proved to be something that wasn't monetizable, like you say, the lessons learned. But I'm sure by the sounds of it, it was a great show, and people would have loved to have. The people that got to listen to it got to listen to it. The people that got to participate are probably, because I think everyone wants their passion to ultimately be something that they can take further outside of their own passion to share with other people, for other people to validate. It just doesn't, like you say, it just doesn't sometimes work out that way because it's difficult to recontextualize why you love something and why other people should like it. and that's always going to be the case. You can't, again, if I try and explain to people, the love of professional wrestling, it's grown men pretending to fight, isn't it? Star Wars is grown men hurtling metal sticks at each other. What's your point? Well, one's got more credence than the other. What? Because more people watch it? Yeah. Okay, I suppose you've got a point. But
I think one of the compensations for growing old is that you cease to give a shit what anyone thinks of anything you like. You don't listen to music because you think you should listen to it. You listen to it because you like it. You don't worry about watching Star Trek Next Generation. All right, it's not cool and it's not going to get me laid, but damn it, some of those stories are good stories. I'm just, you're pulling things out at random here.
I don't know. I think my wrestling culture has laid me down a fair game. If you're ever in a club and you need to compete with another guy and you just rock up to him with a, sorry, what is your name? It doesn't matter what your name, and he doesn't see it coming. Instantly you become attractive to every female. It's just a science. It's just science.
Well, I shall certainly try that at the. No, I'm not going to try that.
I wouldn't try it. No.
I think I can pull it off.
I was lying the whole time. I've never tried that. Never will try it. And the only aspiration, I was telling someone this the other day, because I think the beautiful thing about this era is that we are encouraged to kind of live, if not vicariously through our hobbies and passions, it is to kind of just, like you were saying, just kind of do the things that you always wanted to do, because what's the worst that could happen? And I don't know what yours are, but 3 of mine are, one of these days I will meet the guy who played Jason, because of an atrocity that happened to me when I was a kid in the Power Rangers. Secondly, I will clap 2 beers together and do the Stone Cold Steve Austin thing, and one day I will be Arsenal goalkeeper. Now, it might be the Arsenal over 80s team, but I will be Arsenal goalkeeper before I die. I swore that I'd be a millionaire before I was 17. That didn't pan out. I owe my dad some money for that bet. But also, that was ironic, wasn't it? I am actually further away now from being a millionaire because I made that bet than I would have been if I hadn't made the bet. Anyway.
You should have bet against yourself.
I should have. Well, this is the thing.
I don't know what odds you've got, but...
I was 17. I thought I knew something. I thought I was going to be Arsenal goalkeeper, Ian. What the freaking hell didn't I know? 17 years old. Yeah, I'm going to start. I'm going to be a goalkeeper in a couple of years. Yeah, I'm pretty good. Play 5-a-side occasionally. Yeah, I know what I'm doing.